The other thing to be worried about, India is unique. We don't have this in the United States where students go through agents to go to flight schools.
Yeah.
So what is the purpose of the agent? The purpose of the agent is when you go to an agent, you think that they're sending you to the best school that they have.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not really what's going on behind the scenes. What's going on behind the scenes is the agent is sending the student to the school that will pay them the highest commission.
Ouch.
So not necessarily the best school, but the school that will pay the agent the highest commission. And some of the students and some of the Indian students may have heard about this. There were two agents that were sending students to a school in California that was neither a 141 approved school and was not approved for foreign student visas. And the school was paying a different school to issue the I-20s for the students to go there. And we found out about this because, pilots tend to be very myopic. They see the tree, but they don't tend to see the forest. In fact, I'll give you a statistic. Every airline in the US that's ever been started by pilots has gone bankrupt. I have parents call me sometimes, what's the matter with my son?
Indian parents, yes, I can imagine.
Right, so I understand. So it's really about the customer service, the transparency, the honesty of the school. That's really what's most important, because schools will tell you anything that you want to hear, what they think you want to hear in order to get you to sign up. And then once you're there, they say, oh, they'll never leave because they're here on our I-20 and we have all their money. So if a school asks you to pay everything up front or most of it up front, that's a warning sign. That's a red.
Hello all and welcome to International Aero Academy. This is Mehek and today I am in conversation with Steve, President and CEO of International Aero Academy. This conversation is rather special because Steve is the CEO of the school that I have graduated from, and he is the one who signed on my commercial pilot's license. So welcome, Steve. Happy to have you on board.
Thank you.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and something about the history of school?
I was an airline pilot in the early 90s, and I flew full-time. I was based in Newark Airport, New York, while I went to law school full-time.
Oh.
And when I graduated law school, and now I'm going to date myself, in 1994, I decided that I was going to stop flying, and I became an airline executive. And my first job was the head lawyer of a large US airline. Wow. And after that, I got more involved in operations and finance. And I ran a large international airline for a number of years. And then I took over a cargo airline. I was the chief operating officer and the head lawyer of the airline. But I also got captain qualified on the 737, so I could go fly once in a while and have some fun in life. And then I was continued on in executive roles in the airline industry. And I certified a new airline in 2015, a brand new US airline. And when I was done with that, I sort of trying to decide, what do I want to do next in life? And I had been an airline executive for over 20 years, and I wanted to do something where it was mine. Where I wasn't at a big company, where I could build something myself. So we started looking at flight training organizations. My partners are also former airline executives, presidents, CEOs of US airlines. And we could see that the pilot shortage was coming. So we started looking for flight academies to acquire, and we found one in Lakeland. It was called something else. It was very small. It had 8 or 9 aircraft, but it had the 12,000 square feet of hangars that you know, and it had the dorms, and it was CVIS approved for foreign students and 141 approved by the FAA. So we acquired the assets of the school, and that was in April of 2017. And we quickly grew it. Today we are at, we'll be at 29 aircraft next month. Wow. We also opened up additional aviation companies. Our maintenance is a FAA certified repair station, which is very different from most flight school maintenance. We are allowed to do work on commercial aircraft. There are manuals, there are audits, there's mandatory training. All our mechanics are under an FAA random drug alcohol program. So it's just a much higher level of training with more scrutiny. There's more like airline maintenance. We also started a new airline. We have our own air carrier. We do charter operations. It's called International Aero Charters. And I still fly as a captain there.
Wow.
So I can go out and have some fun as well. And we started a school for aircraft mechanics. In the US, we call them airframe and power plant mechanics. So we call them A&P schools. And it took us about 3 years to certify that. And it's on the other side of the field at Lakeland Airport from us, where the flight school is. And after we opened it, Amazon approached us. And they asked us if we could do a night program for them. And we said yes. So Amazon pays for its associates to become FAA licensed aircraft mechanics, and they pay the tuition for them.
That's amazing.
So it was a great partnership for us, and an honor to be, asked to partner with a company like Amazon.
I'm sure.
And then for the U.S. students, we have a pathway program, cadet program with Spirit Airlines, where they can interview with Spirit when they only have 500 hours, because in the U.S. you require 1,500 hours to go to the airlines. They pass the interview, they get a conditional letter of employment, and they continue working with us as instructors. And when they hit their 1,500 hours, they're straight off flying Airbus for Spirit Airlines. So that's the history of the school and how we got to where we are. So interestingly, we hold more FAA certificates than any other organization in the United States.
That is quite a proud achievement to carry.
So it is and it isn't, because we are also the most heavily regulated training organization in the United States, because we have 4 sets of FAA inspectors, and so that's
two sides of every coin, indeed. 2
sides of every coin.
But that sounds rather interesting, because you started as an airline pilot, you maneuvered your way as into the financial team, into understanding the nitty-gritties of an airline, and then building your own company from scratch, growing it in all fields of aviation, not just building pilots, but building pilots and the entire aviation career for that matter.
Correct.
That sounds amazing. Like, from what I've heard, from 2017 to 2024 today, the company seems to have grown drastically.
It would have happened much quicker, but COVID put us 2 years
Indeed.
back.
That put the entire world
Put
back.
the entire world
Correct.
back 2 years, yes.
So now that you are the CEO of International Aero Academy, what is the mission of the flight school, and how do you think is it going to evolve further ahead?
So for us, the mission is, some flight schools say my mission is to be the biggest flight school. The largest fleet, the most students, the most this, the most that. That's not our goal. Our goal is to be simply the best. And I think one of the testaments to that is the fact that of the 100+ Indian students that we've trained in the last year, every one of our students that is interviewed at Indigo Airlines has passed the initial technical interview. And usually about 30%, 25 to 30% of candidates that go to Indigo fail that initial technical test. 100% of our students pass that. And that is because of the quality of the training that we provide. And we're able to do that because we've run training in airlines. We're not just airline pilots, we've actually run and overseen training, maintenance, all the functions at an airline.
So you know what to expect out of an airline pilot, and how do you train your students?
Correct. So for example, when you were a student with us, you used the standard operating procedures that we wrote.
Absolutely did.
Okay,
Yes.
so we have one for the private, one for the instrument, and it's all the call outs, all of the maneuvers, pictorials, step by step.
Yes.
What does that really look like? It really is based off an airline training manual.
Yeah.
So those are what we call profiles. And when you go fly an Airbus, you will go through the training and you'll see the profiles that they give you. So it's built like an airline manual.
Okay. All right. So apparently, your ground training and all of this, what are the other factors that sets International Aero Academy apart from the other schools that are in the game?
So I'll give you an example. When you had an issue, where did you come to get it resolved at the school when you were a student?
The chief of the school, and then you.
You walked into my office and
I
said,
did.
I have a problem.
Absolutely.
And I told you I would solve it. And did I solve it for you?
100%, yes, you
Okay.
did.
So all of the students have much to my wife's chagrin, they all have my cell phone number. And any student, as long as I'm in the office, they know they can walk into my office
That's true,
if they have an
yes.
issue. So it's open, it's transparent. And that's, I think, what's very, very important. And whenever we hire a new flight instructor, the US is the only country in the world right now that has an overabundance of flight instructors. So we probably, I get about 30 resumes a week from all over the US. We will probably, out of that 30, pick 1 or 2 to call back. And out of the callbacks, we probably hire a little less than 10%.
Okay.
But when we do hire a new flight instructor, after they do their initial check rides and training with our chief or our check instructors, they all have to come and speak with me. And I tell them 2 things, the 2 things that are important to us. Number 1 is safety above all else.
100%.
Okay, so the weather's not good, land. The plane, something's wrong with it, stop. You don't feel comfortable with something, stop and land. Okay, we don't compromise on safety at all, and nobody will ever get in trouble for doing something in the name of safety.
100%.
Even just period, end of story. And the second is customer service. We are a customer service organization. When you are our student, you are our customer. You are spending a lot of money to train with us,
That's
right? So either your parents took out loans or they've taken out of their savings, and we understand that and we respect that.
Yeah.
So whenever a new instructor comes, I ask him, how much did you spend to get to where you are today? And he'll say, for US students, it's more expensive, $70,000, $80,000. I said, okay. So our students are spending a little bit less than that, but they're still spending a huge amount of money.
That's true.
If you go to a store, you buy something and you spend $10, you want to be treated like a customer. Our customers are here spending $50,000, $60,000. It's very, very simple. They need to be treated like they are at the Mercedes dealership, not the used car lot. And unfortunately, most flight schools treat the students like they're the used car lot.
That's an interesting way to put it, an interesting perspective to it.
Well, I try to make it very simple so it sticks in their head. And then I ask them the next question. I said, who's the most important employee at an airline? And they'll look at me and they'll say, of course they'll say, the pilots. No. The mechanics? No. The CEO? No, he's probably the least important. I don't know, Steve, who is it? It's the flight attendants. Why the flight attendants? Because the flight attendants have the most face time with the customers. You can have a flight that's late, bumpy, the meal's not that great, but you have a great cabin crew and that'll make up for it.
That's true.
You can have a flight that's on time, smooth, good meal, and you have a not so nice cabin crew, you'll remember that as well.
100%.
So then I look at the new flight instructor and I say, so in essence, you are our flight attendants. So you put it in a way that it sticks in their head. And then I told them, I said, I don't care how good of an instructor you are, if you don't have customer service skills, you will not survive here. 100%.
True. So what qualities is it that you look for in a student? Or what qualities make an ideal student for you?
So, everybody comes to flight school and they think it's all about learning how to fly, right? The first thing they want to do, I want to get into an airplane, I want to go fly. And that's great, right? But there's a system to this. And learning how to fly is almost secondary. I mean, we can teach almost anybody how to fly the airplane. It's the ground knowledge.
Correct.
It is all of the regulations, the weather, the charts, the approaches, everything that goes into behind the scenes of flying an airplane. And if the weather's nice and the plane, everything's great, anybody can fly the airplane. But we train you to be prepared for the eventualities that something may not be right, and you may have an emergency. It happens, right? It happens in your car, right? You get a flat tire, you pull over the side of the road. Can't pull over the side of the road in an airplane. So it is all of the ground knowledge that we really, really stress, which again is why 100% of our students pass the Indigo technical exam.
The results are showing, of
The
course.
results are showing. So when students arrive, we always tell them that this is the equivalent of university level studies.
Correct.
And if you want to be successful doing this, you have to study. So for every hour you're in an airplane, there's 4 or 5 hours of study that's required. And it's not just here at the flight school. When you go to the airlines, you're going to have your basic indoctrination training, then you're going to have systems training, then you're going to have simulator training, then you're going to go on the line and you're going to have your first however many hours with a check instructor that's flying, a check captain that's flying with you. Then every 12 months you have to go back for recurrent training and another check ride. And then once you become a captain, it's every 6 months you have a check ride. You go to a new aircraft type, you move from a A320 to an A330. Now you have to go back and do it all over again. So flying the airplane's great, but that's only half of it, and throughout your entire career.
Correct.
There's always, so what we look for is students that understand that they, in order to be successful, they have to put in a lot of effort. There's a lot of studying. Now we have all the support they need. We do group ground. We always have instructors available, or even myself, to answer questions for students. We have simulators for them to use. So, we give all the tools, and we tell them what they need to. We tell them what they need to do to be successful.
Of course.
So, that's really it. Is coming with the attitude of this is a university level studies.
So the guiding force is always there.
Yeah.
Talking about aircrafts, earlier you mentioned you have about 29 aircrafts. So could you talk a little bit more about that?
Right. So the aircraft are typically what all the other flight schools have. We have Cessna 152s, which are 2 seats. Cessna 172s, the 4 seats. We have Tecnam P2008s, which are 2-seat, but incredibly advanced technology. And then our multi-engine is also Tecnam with a glass cockpit, multi-engine plane. So then we have our FAA approved simulator, which the Indian students will do about 10 hours during the instrument. And then for the multi-engine, the DGCA permits 10 hours in our multi-engine simulator and then 15 hours in the aircraft. And then the hardest thing for students when they're training is the initial private pilot rating, right? True. Everything is new. It's a new language. It's new skill sets. It's new hand-eye coordination. And it's a lot to take in at once. If a student is going to have trouble during the private pilot, it's learning how to land. It's the sight picture of when to flare, how do I land. It's what it looks like judging out of the cockpit to do that. And when a student has trouble with that, instead, we're very conscious of the costs that students are incurring to train with us. So in order to avoid just keep taking them up in the airplane over and over again at a substantial cost, we built a virtual reality simulator. And the virtual reality simulator, while not FAA approved, it is realistic enough to teach a student how to land.
It's visually giving you the sight picture for students.
It's a sight picture, because you can't tell you're not in a real airplane when you're doing the virtual reality. And we don't charge a student for the virtual reality simulator. They can't log it, and we don't charge it for it.
All right. So you said Cessna 152, 172s, and then you spoke about glass cockpits. So you have analog and you have glass cockpits as well, a combination of both.
So most students, we look, at the end of the day, the student is our customer, and we will do as they ask. But we always tell them that it is best for you to train for your private and your instrument in the analog cockpit, because it teaches you the basics that you will never get from a glass cockpit.
Correct.
And then once they transition to their commercial and their time building, then we could transition them to the glass cockpit. And the Tecnam P2008s are complete glass cockpits, and they're even more advanced. They're touchscreen. And then each screen can split into 2 screens, so you really get 4 screens. And you get traffic, you get weather radar, you get winds aloft, temperatures aloft, airport facility directory, charts.
So everything on the screen.
Is there. It has more information in it than the 737s I flew. So that's the transition where they get the introduction to the glass. It's very, very easy to take somebody from analog to glass. It's very, very hard and lengthy to take somebody who trained in glass and take them back to analog.
So training in the analog is basically strengthening the concepts of the students.
The core skills.
Perfect. Could you walk us through a typical day of a student at International Aero?
So students are scheduled to fly 4 days a week. They're also required to be at the school 4 hours per day. For the private and instrument students, they're required to be at our facility 4 hours a day. And that is so that we know they're studying. And they get into group studies, which is very helpful. I think group study is a great tool. We also host group grounds classes. We also do mock oral exams. So before somebody takes a private pilot check ride, a commercial check ride, or an instrument check ride, we do a mock oral with them. And we invite all the other students to come watch. I know it's a lot of peer pressure. Were you ever?
I was, yes, a couple of them.
Right, so it's peer pressure, but it's great because the students get to see exactly what knowledge base they're going to have. And incentivize them to study more.
So when you talk about group study sessions, like is there an instructor available for
Yes.
these situations?
Yeah, so the group study is done by a ground instructor
Okay. All right.
or a flight instructor. We have a ground and flight instructors.
So y'all have separate instructors for that. That is amazing. Okay. Can you tell us one? So you spoke about the private pilot stage that students have difficulty in landing. Any other difficulties that a student may incur during their training?
No, it's really, sometimes they get nervous when they have their first stage check. So under 141, the private has 3 stage checks. And the first one, it's their first check ride, and it's done with a check instructor, not the instructor they've been training with. So they tend to get very nervous. It's the first time. And when that happens, and I know they get nervous, so I tell them, I tell students, you will go through check rides for the rest of your life as an airline pilot. So you need to get used to it. But I say, okay, so you're going to go do steep turns, right? What is the tolerance that the FAA allows you to have to successfully pass in steep turns? It's plus or minus what?
Yeah, plus or minus
100, right?
steep turns feet, yes, 100.
Okay, 100 feet. Why is it plus or minus 100 and not plus or minus 10? Because nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
And they don't expect you to be perfect, right? There's FAA standards, and that's all we're asking. Meet the standards.
They give you room for error.
They give you room for error. Nobody's perfect. So there's that. We try to calm them down and say, you know, we know you're going to be nervous, and it's natural to be nervous, but there's tolerance, right? So you don't have to be exact. You can be plus or minus 100. When you have your oral as part of your, you don't know the answer, don't guess.
Yeah.
Look it up. Say, I don't know, I'm going to look it up. And that's a perfectly legitimate answer.
Yeah, from what I remember, you also have certain study material that you can take in the examination room to help you out. You were talking about check rides. So can we dwell a little more into that? Who conducts these check rides?
So for the private and the instrument rating, so typically in the US, right, so you take your FAA written exam. When you complete the course in the 141, you have an end of course.
Correct.
Okay, check ride. And that means you pass that and you've completed the 141 course. And then for, there are 550 141 schools in the United States. 29 of them have what's called self-examining authority. So we're one of 29 of 550 flight schools that has self-examining authority. And what that means is that your end of course, your 141 end of course check ride is your check ride for your rating or your license. You don't have to go to an FAA examiner, which, you know, in parts of the US, the wait is a month, 2 months, 3 months for the examiner. The FAA, we met certain really high qualifications, and the FAA granted us self-examination authority. So your end of course check ride for the 141 is your FAA check ride. And you know this because I'm the one who actually issues the temporary certificates, and I issued you your temporary private and your temporary instrument.
Yes.
So of all the things that I deal with on a daily basis with all of our companies as the CEO of all of them, the one that gives me the greatest joy is issuing our students their temporary certificates.
That's lovely. Also, like, now that I'm back in India, conversations with other pilots and people who've come back from their training, most of their training has been a hiccup due to, let's say, maintenance issues or safety protocols. So how does International Aero Academy tackle that? Okay,
so take a look at the aircraft for a second, right? So the Cessna 172 and 152 are the most prevalent training aircraft, right, in the world. Those aircraft were not built as trainers, right? They're built for private aircraft. So the average guy who owns a Cessna 172 probably flies his airplane 100 hours a year.
Correct.
We fly 100 hours a month in these planes, right? They were never, you know, they were never meant for that much usage. So there's maintenance. Things break, just like on your car. If you drove your car, you know, 100,000 miles a year, you're going to have new tires, you're going to have fluid replacement, you're going to have things, right? So all of these, every 100 hours, they require a 100-hour inspection, which takes 3 or 4 days per aircraft. So all of these things, there are always going to be aircraft in maintenance. Really, the question you have to ask is, how does a school deal with the maintenance? You know, is their maintenance of a high quality? Do they have experienced mechanics? Do they have, are they a 145 repair station like we are? Because most flight schools that are not 145 repair stations, certified repair stations like we are, there's no FAA oversight of their maintenance.
Okay.
That's really what you're looking for, is the quality of the maintenance, the experience level, and are they an FAA approved repair station?
And
so in fact, I think it was after you left, the avionics in the airplanes.
Yeah.
Who makes the avionics?
Garmin,
right? So Garmin makes all the glass displays. They make all of the GPS units, all the radios. So we had a very distinct honor in August of being approved as a Garmin dealer.
Wow.
So which means we're allowed to do our own installations of Garmin displays and Garmin GPSs and Garmin radios and Garmin transponders. We have all the access to, we're granted all the access to the data, and so we are approved by Garmin to do the installations.
So the aircrafts don't need to go somewhere for these
installations. They don't need to go anywhere
Okay.
else, and we're one of only 2 flight schools in Florida that are approved Garmin dealers.
That surely cuts down your time in waiting and things
like
that.
It does, but it's an honor because it is a very difficult thing to attain.
I mean, from what we've discussed, the school has attained way too many difficult FAA certifications. And
so that was a very big boost for us, both in terms of our ability to do our own Garmin installations, but also it's an honor.
Now with the growing demand of pilots, how does International Aero Academy keep up with the industry standards?
Standardization. So, we do things, and you've seen that as a student, right? Even when you, through the SOPs, right? The standard operating procedures. So the way I explain it to students is, how many pilots are, we're in India, so we're going to talk about Indian students.
Yes.
How many pilots are there at Indigo? Do you know?
Thousands.
It's about 6,000.
Yes.
Okay. So when you get hired by Indigo and you finish your training and your first day on the line and you start flying, what are the chances that you're going to get into the cockpit with a captain you've flown with before? Not very high.
Yeah.
So why is it that 2 of you get to the cockpit and you fly together as if you've been flying together for 20 years? I mean, you just met.
Correct.
Standardization. And that's what keeps you safe, and that's what keeps everybody doing the same thing the same way.
So setting that routine, setting that standard for students
Correct.
helps them prepare themselves for the airlines.
Correct. So everything we do is standardized.
And how do you think is the school connecting students with the airline post their training?
So let's talk about the Indian market for a minute. In 2018, we could have been approved by the Chinese DGCA, which is called the CAAC. And once you get approved by the Chinese authorities, you can contract directly with Chinese airlines, and they'll send you 300 cadets a year.
Okay.
We looked at it and we said, this is not what we want to do, for a number of reasons. And we always thought that there was the danger of geopolitical issues with China, which has now happened, right? There are there used to be 3,500 Chinese cadets a year in the US pre-COVID. There are 0 today.
3,500 is a large number.
Right, and there's 0 today. But we looked at India, and we saw India as the coming growth in aviation. So by way of example, in the US, we have slightly over 6,000 commercial aircraft. Do you know how many commercial aircraft there are in India? About 1,000. Okay, so the US has 6 times more commercial aircraft than India has today. But the middle class of India is larger than the entire population of the United States. So what do you think is going to happen growth in India? So India will have an insatiable demand for pilots for the next 20 years. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. As long as you finish the course, you get your licenses, you can pass the technical interview questions, you will get hired as an airline pilot in India. It is an insatiable demand for pilots that is not going away. There's no one country, either internally in India or external to India, that can handle the training demand that's going to be required over the next 2 decades.
So the exponential growth is what is impending. That's nice. We were talking about how you only hire, let's say, about 10% of the interviews or the instructors that have applied, how do you end up building a team of skilled instructors? Because what we've seen and what I have spoken to other students across US, International Aero Academy has one of the finest instructors in terms of their quality of training. So how do you finesse that and constantly growing your team?
So when new instructors arrive and they go through our training, because they need to meet our standards. So we can say, they're not hired with us until they go through a mock oral for the private, the instrument, and the commercial.
Oh,
it's about a 6 or 7 hour interview process.
Oh.
And then we take them flying. And they have to demonstrate all the private maneuvers, the instrument maneuvers, the commercial maneuvers. And only after that will we hire them. But then they're assigned a mentor, a senior instructor, to be their mentor. Because we know, everything's new to them with us and how we do things, and we spend time showing them how our process works and the SOPs and our curriculum and all of that. So, and then Mike Somers, our chief instructor, holds standardization meetings on a regular basis with the instructors, and instructor meetings where they get to say things that they see that they think maybe we could do better, or we're an opportunity to, explain to them and more about the standardization and make sure everybody's doing the same thing the same way. And then I am also a check instructor for the private instrument commercial. So occasionally I will go out and do a stage check. And that's for me to make sure that everybody's teaching the same thing the same way. So I did one about a month ago in the instrument, stage 2. And he was terrified. Oh my God, I'm gonna fly with the CEO, and he's a former airline pilot, and he didn't want to fly with me. He was so scared. So we got into a plane, and I said, just calm down. Just pretend I'm like any other normal instructor. And I gave him the whole spiel about, plus or minus 100 and plus or minus 10 on the heading. And he actually did a good job, and I passed him. So, but it's an opportunity for me to evaluate how we're doing.
Dealing with so many students at once, with the growth of a team, how do you, as the CEO of such a leading school, measure success for both, not just students, but students as well as your school?
So success for me is when our students graduate and they reach their dream, right? They get hired at an airline, or we have some of our US instructors and students that have graduated and they've gone on to fly Gulfstreams business jets for commercial operators. So the success for us is how many of our students, after graduation, within 6 months, 8 months, have gotten on to their dream job.
That is
and the percentage is very, very high.
That is so good to hear. What are some of the biggest challenges that you think you face dealing with a large school, a growing number?
So the bigger the organization gets, obviously the challenges become more exponential, right? And so it's just like an airline, right? So, the larger the airline gets, the more complex it gets. So it's about having the right team, right? So it's about having in maintenance, having the right team leading maintenance and doing our maintenance, which I trust implicitly. It's about having a great chief instructor. It's about selecting the proper instructors to be check instructors. It's about having our staff and the administrative side. If we need to add people, we do.
Yes.
But it's having somebody who's very, very strong leading our student affairs, which I think Ty does a great job doing.
I am sure she does a phenomenal job.
She does a phenomenal job. So it's not about me, it's about the people. So one of the things that I learned in my career running airlines, it's not about me, right? What is about me is who do I hire, right? So if I'm lucky, I'll hire the smartest people I can find, and hopefully they're smarter than I am. And that makes a great team. So it's not about any one individual, it's about the quality of the team that you assemble as a manager.
What advice would you give our viewers who are currently pursuing a career in aviation or considering to pursue a career in aviation?
So the first piece of advice is, if you're considering a career in aviation, you are going to have a choice to make of which schools you're going to go to. There is in India, it's fascinating. There is a lot of misinformation and disinformation.
There is a lot of information. It's a sea of information that students are stuck
Correct,
into.
but a lot of it is disinformation. So for example, we know that there are schools in the US that train Indian students that will advertise and market through what we call agents.
Yeah.
Courses for 200 or 220 hours for 0 through commercial multi. Is it, you know the regulations, is it possible to do it
No,
in
it
that?
isn't. You need 250 hours.
You need 250 hours. Well, you need, in the US, you could do it in about 210 hours. The difference is for US students. The difference is you have to meet, as Indian students, you have to meet 2 sets of regulations. You have to meet the FAA requirements,
as well as
but you also have the DGCA requirements. And the DGCA requirements, the thing that makes you have to do the 250 is you need 100 hours of solo PIC.
Okay.
And what does solo PIC mean? Solo PIC means you are the only one in the aircraft. There is not anybody else. There's not an instructor with you. There's not another student with you. So some of the schools allow you to cheat, and they will put you in this 100 hours of solo PIC is what they call sometimes supervised solo, where they have an instructor with you. So you're paying for the instructor, and you're logging it. Hopefully, I mean, there's no way. The students have to log it as solo PIC for it to get approved by the DGCA. So the school sort of winks, you know, go ahead and do it. And the student says, okay, well, the school told me to do it, so I guess it's okay. But one day, if they get caught by the DGCA, they can lose their license.
Other than being illegal, it also steals away from the student's opportunity to learn.
Yes, yes.
Like so much, like 100 hours is a
Correct.
long time that a
Correct.
student spends knowing the aircraft.
The other thing is cost, right? So we know that there is a large flight school that trains Indian students, a well-known one, I'm not going to use names, that initially advertises the 0 through commercial multi-engine course at $35,000. Okay.
Lucrative.
It cannot be done at $35,000. If I were offering the course at $35,000, we'd be bankrupt. I know what the costs are. I mean, we know what our costs are down to the penny. Insurance, fuel, aircraft lease cost, capital cost, parts cost per hour, labor cost per hour. I mean, we're finance guys. We have it down to the penny.
I am sure.
It can't be done for $35,000. So if it sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true. And what we do know is most of the students that go there end up paying almost double.
Ouch.
And then the other thing to be worried about, India is unique. We don't have this in the United States where students go through agents to go through flight schools.
Yeah.
So what is the purpose of the agent? The purpose of the agent is when you go to an agent, you think that they're sending you to the best school that they have.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not really what's going on behind the scenes. What's going on behind the scenes is the agent is sending the student to the school that will pay them the highest commission.
Ouch.
So not necessarily the best school, but the school that will pay the agent the highest commission. And some of the students and some of the Indian students may have heard about this. There were 2 agents that were sending students to a school in California called Airman that was neither a 141 approved school and was not approved for foreign student visas. And the school was paying a different school to issue the I-20s for the students to go there. And we found out about this because initially I had a parent who had gone through an agent that gave them our school and the California school as options, but she told them they should go to the California school, probably because she was getting a larger commission. But the father called and said, I don't understand. You know, we were looking at your school and then, you know, we ended up choosing the one in California, but the school is called Airman, but the I-20 says American helicopters on it. Is that normal? And is that real? I said, I don't know. I said, you know, let me take your number and I'll call you back. And I went in quickly on the internet, and they're 2 separate companies. They're not affiliated. Oh. So I called the father back and I said, they're 2 separate companies. So it must be that they're paying the other school to issue the I-20s, which is illegal under US law. In order for a foreign student to train at a US flight school, the school must be 141 approved.
Clearly.
And they must be CVIS approved. So the father pulled his kid out of there and wasn't sending him there, and he sent him to us instead. That school, airmen, shut down. They had 60 or 70 Indian students there, and all of them lost their money.
And
So-
in the middle of your training, to lose something,
Correct.
to lose your school in the middle of your training, that can
But
be
these
very
were,
devastating.
these were large agents in India that sent the students there.
Oh.
And they knew. It's their job to know.
And thankfully, International Aero has cut that down.
So my job to, when I speak to prospective students, is not to say, hey, you should come to us because we're the best. Really, my job is, I'm going to try and educate you. And if you're an educated consumer, you'll make the wisest choice. And hopefully that's us. It may not be. But my goal is to educate the students.
So why don't you tell our viewers, let's say about 5 questions that they should ask a flight school that they are looking at?
Well, first of all, are they 141 approved? Are they CVIS approved?
Okay.
How large is their fleet?
All right.
How many instructors do they have? Have they ever had any accidents or incidents?
All right.
Is the agent, what is the commission the agent's getting?
I'm pretty sure no one's revealing that, if that is true.
You should know. And we've terminated relationships with agents in the past before we opened up our own office here because we felt the commissions they were taking were egregious. It wasn't fair to the students.
Yeah, because it's coming out of the student's pocket.
Right. And then, so interestingly enough, most flight schools today use a software program called Flight Schedule Pro. And in Flight Schedule Pro is where we schedule your flights, right? The curriculums are loaded in there. And so if you were doing lesson number 4 on your private pilot rating, you can go into your Flight Schedule Pro account, you can click on lesson 4, and it's going to show you, here's the lesson, here's the new things we're going to accomplish today.
Yes.
Here are the things we're going to review.
Yes.
Here are the standards that you need to meet to pass the lesson. And oh, by the way, here are the things you have to study before the lesson.
So it's
Okay.
all out for the student
Correct.
to study and prepare.
And then once you complete the lesson, you and the instructor are going to go over the lesson. The instructor is going to grade you on each maneuver within the lesson. Okay? And then the instructor is going to put comments in there about the lesson. You did a great job, or your landings were a little rough, or you're a little bit off on the localizer, whatever they will put in comments into every single lesson. Then you will put your PIN in that's self-generated from the system. We don't know what it is.
Okay.
You enter your PIN, the instructor enters his PIN, and the lesson gets closed out. But you can always go back and see that. And anything else, the other thing the system tracks is every single charge made to a student from his
Yes,
account
well
or her
done.
account. So when you logged into your Flight Schedule Pro account, the first thing you saw at the top was your current account balance, how much money you had on your account.
Yes.
Then you can go in and you could look at every single charge.
Yes.
You can click on Show Invoice, and it'll show you the detailed invoice for every single thing that you've
That
been
is
charged by the school. There's no hidden costs, right? Zero.
And
Zero
that I
hidden
have
costs.
experienced myself. Like every
Correct.
transaction or every money that I gave to school, it was accounted for and nothing was left haywire.
Right, but it was complete transparency.
Complete transparency.
So most schools shut off those functions. So the students
Oh.
can't see their account balance, they can't see their invoices, they can't see their 141 records, they can't see the records and the grading of each of their lessons.
That sounds rather absurd because that would make no sense for a student.
But it
'Cause
makes
I-
sense for the flight school.
Because I know when I have gone back for my training and gone back to the same lessons, I know that every single maneuver, every single task has been accounted for, and I know how
Correct.
I have performed, whether I have been satisfactory or unsatisfactory or something I need to improve on. So everything being accounted for makes it so much easier for a student to know what to prepare for next.
Correct. So the most important question is, how transparent is the school? Do I have full transparency into my lessons, the grading? Do I have full transparency into what my account balance is? Do I have full transparency to see online every single invoice that is billed to me
Yes.
in detail? And if the answer is no, then that's a red flag.
Clearly.
The other thing to ask is the quality of the maintenance. Are they an FAA certified repair station like we are? Because that's airline level maintenance. Do they have self-examining authority? Because that means you had to meet very, very, very high hurdles from the FAA. There's only 29 schools in the country that have self-examining authority.
I mean, Barely a few then.
Barely a few. Who's running the school?
Yeah.
Okay, so pilots do not normally make good businessmen. They don't. It's like doctors, right? Doctors, my sister's a Harvard-trained oncologist. She's a great cancer doctor. She doesn't know how to boil rice, right? So pilots tend to be very myopic. They see the tree, but they don't tend to see the forest. In fact, I'll give you a statistic. Every airline in the US that's ever been started by pilots has gone bankrupt.
Ouch.
Yeah. So who's running it? Are these professional business people?
Yes.
You know, they don't have to have run Fortune 500 companies like my partners and I have, but are they professional business people? Do they come from aviation? Do they come from commercial aviation? I mean, it's hard to say you're going to train somebody to be an airline pilot if you don't know what that means. And even airline pilots, they don't know what goes on in putting together an airline traiing program.
Certainly, yes.
They just go into the simulator and get their training. So we've built training programs at airlines. So who's running the school? Who is the management? Are they accessible? Are they available? I have parents call me sometimes, you know, what's the matter with my son?
Indian parents, yes, I can imagine.
Right? So I understand. So it's really about the customer service, the transparency, the honesty of the school. That's really what's most important, because you know, schools will tell you anything that you want to hear, what they think you want to hear in order to get you to sign up. And then once you're there, they say, oh, they'll never leave because they're here on our I-20
Yes.
and we have all their money. So if a school asks you to pay everything up front or most of it up front, that's another red warning sign. That's a big red flag. So we don't do that. Students pay in installments.
Okay.
I don't think it's fair to ask a student to pay for everything up front.
Because it's a big chunk of money.
It's a big chunk of money, but it's also a red flag. And if I were out shopping for flight training and somebody said you have to pay the whole thing up front, I'd be like, this is a red flag.
So how do you think, what is the future of International Aero Academy?
So, you know, we talked about the size of the Indian market, right? And the growth that's going to come in the coming decades to
100%,
India.
yes.
And we talked about why we decided to focus on India and not become a Chinese
Yes.
cadet program. And we talked about the agents. And we decided almost a year ago that we are committed to India for the long term. And we are going to open our own office in India.
Okay.
So last March, we opened up our first office in Mumbai.
Yes.
So we provide a 360 solution for Indian students. So we do the ground schools in Mumbai. We also do ground schools in Delhi with Captain Surinder Singh.
Okay.
And the training we do in the US. When students return, we oversee their license conversion for them.
Oh.
So that they can, you know, all the steps that they need to do and all the paperwork and guide them through the license conversion. We guide them also for the check ride that's required here from the DGCA to convert their license. And then we also guide them through the type rating. So we offer type ratings in 737s and A320s through a partnership with a simulator provider. So we essentially become a one-stop shop.
Perfect. So like anyone who is thinking about aviation can have all their needs satisfied if they come to International Aero Academy.
You can have all of your needs satisfied from start to finish, including helping you through the visa process, right? The I-20, coaching you on the visa interview, the entire process, your trip to the US, your training, and then your license conversion, your check ride here, and then the type rating, all in one place, run by airline professionals.
That is amazing. Like, I'm pretty sure everyone who is listening to this must be super thrilled because you really don't have to look anywhere else. And it is so good to hear that the company is not just run by people who want to sell their product, but it's run by people who've not just flown commercial airplanes, but they've also understood the working of an airline. And that's why the company is bound to grow.
You know, I mean, look, we think we do a great job. We think we provide a better quality training. We think we have better customer service, transparency, honesty, and integrity. But at the end of the day, the student has to make his or her decision where they want to go to train.
100%.
And our goal is, we believe that if we educate students on the pitfalls and what to look for, what not to look for, what some of the agents are doing and what their real intentions are and what their rewards are, sending you to the school that pays the highest commission, then students will make the correct choice.
Yes.
And hopefully that correct choice is with us.
I think it's all about making the right informed choice for every customer.
Look, you are about to spend upwards of $50,000.
Yes.
Okay. You should be an educated consumer. You go buy a car, right? If you go buy a car, you'll spend hours online looking at this model and that model and what features and what things I get and gas mileage and does it have GPS map? Does it have this? Does it have that? I mean, you'll spend more time researching which model car you want than which flight school you're going to go to.
That's true.
So you can what we're trying to do is make you an educated consumer, because we think that an educated consumer will ultimately be our best customer and student.
Certainly. This was a very insightful conversation, Steve.
I am
so glad.
Thank you for hosting us.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.